Sarah grinned as she looked at her mother-in-law. It was clear from the look in her eyes that she didn't think what had happened was unusual. Her mother-in-law was human too, so what now? But Jennifer's daughter was literally unlike herself. Jennifer paced around the kitchen from corner to corner and twitched her earlobe nervously. There was no reason to install cameras all over the house. Mary turned away to the window with indignation. Sure, the kids weren't thrilled that she'd set up a movie studio in their house, but how did she feel? To meet a man for the first time in 10 years, and such an embarrassment at once. It's our business where and what we put in the house, she said. Mary flared up. Oh, really? Then don't ask me to sit with Michael anymore. In fact, I'll never set foot in this house again. She jumped up from her chair and left the kitchen. And the story goes like this. Jennifer and her husband were going on vacation. Of course they wanted to spend the vacation together without dragging 3-year-old Michael along. Mom, stay with Michael for a week. Her daughter looked pleadingly at Mary. We've already picked out a hotel and paid for everything. So I'm working, the woman marveled. Even though retirement age had come a couple years ago, Mary had no intention of retiring. She loved her job as a veterinarian. Well, Mom, you wanted to quit anyway. And then we have a vegetable garden. You can vacation at our house. You do realize I can only leave Michael with you. Mary sighed. The vegetable garden, yes, it was a vacation. When her daughter and her husband had bought a cottage in town, the woman had never imagined that they would now spend all their weekends in their beds. Thinking carefully, Maria agreed to her daughter's proposal to quit. And first of all, because of her grandson. Leaving him in the care of her mother-in-law and drinking grandfather was not the best alternative. It's okay. I really should go on vacation. I don't need this job. When John was gone, I was sick of this job, she thought, packing a travel bag with things her daughter might need. Her husband had died 5 years ago, before her grandson was born, and only working at the animal clinic saved her from loneliness. Good afternoon, Mary. No sooner had her son-in-law's car disappeared around the corner than James' neighbor's head appeared over the fence. Good day to you, James. We left you in charge. No kidding. The neighbor suddenly smiled. We should celebrate this event with a kebab and cognac. Mary blinked in surprise, but immediately pulled herself together. I don't mind a kebab, but no alcohol. But later, when I'm done, I have to move the flower bed. And I still have to study with Michael. No problem. The neighbor winked and disappeared behind the fence. Anyway, James had tried several times to win Mary's affections. She was a prominent woman, overweight, and constantly dyed her hair purple. Mary was beautiful. You couldn't pass her by. And the neighbor just lived alone and dreamed of finding a new wife. But Mary had a strict character, and what would the children think? She should retire, do her garden and grandchildren, nothing to look at men. But now she had to take care of her grandson for a week, which meant she had to get to know her neighbor. In case she needed help, and in general, at least a couple of words could be exchanged. 3 hours later, the neighbor was here. Holding a bag of coals in one hand and a basin of marinated meat in the other, James took the brazier out of the shed and began to work on the fire. We'll have to clean it up afterwards so the kids won't say anything. It wouldn't be nice, Mary said worriedly. Don't worry, everything will be just fine. In the meantime, I suggest you take 3 drops for your mood. The neighbor took out a bottle of cognac from his vest pocket. Acquaintance for the sake of acquaintance. Well, if it's 3 drops, the woman hesitated. I still have to put Michael to bed. So let's have a little drink. While the meat is roasting, put your grandson to bed, and then we'll sit down, James planned rationally. She had no choice but to nod obediently. After all, it wouldn't be a big deal if she relaxed a little. James was so relaxed and joking that after 10 minutes, Mary was literally enchanted by her new acquaintance. The meat on the fire was very tasty indeed, especially with the brandy. Mary praised her new acquaintance's culinary skills. lamenting the fact that Michael had not waited for such deliciousness and had fallen asleep. "We can keep it for breakfast," the neighbor giggled. "I suggest toast." "No, no, no toast. Better help me carry all the dishes into the kitchen," Mary asked. "I'm dizzy, and I want to go to bed." James took those words as a guide to action. Grumbling, he threw the woman over his shoulder and carried her quickly into the house. The large living room with the semicircular leather sofa by the fireplace was the first room to receive guests in his daughter's home. It was here that Mary, like a crystal vase, had been placed by a neighbor. "What are you doing, James? Don't tell me you don't need this. You said yourself that you haven't had a man in 10 years. James muttered. Mary didn't remember the rest of it well. A mixture of shame, fear that her grandson would wake up, and simultaneously forgotten pleasure completely clouded the woman's mind. In the morning, she was awakened by the invigorating aroma of coffee. "Mary, wake up, darling." Slowly, trying not to turn her buzzing head, Mary sat up on the couch and looked around. Clothes were lying on the floor. There could be no doubt about it. Last night had ended very stormy. "You're actually a lighter." "I didn't even expect." Handing the lady of my heart a mug with a drink, the neighbor said admiringly. And again. "Michael, where?" Throwing on a t-shirt, Mary asked fearfully. "In his seat napping." "You're in bed while you're sleeping, so I got up and looked." "And you're so pretty when you're asleep." James ran his palm caressingly through the woman's hair. "I'll help you in the vegetable garden." The affair was not limited to one meeting. The next evening, James came to visit again, this time with a bottle of Chardonnay. Mary smiled as she took the baked chicken out of the oven, for this time she was expecting a guest. Today she didn't even resist when James gently put his arm around her waist and dragged her to the couch. The week flew by like a day. The stormy affair was gaining momentum, and Mary was already painting pictures of a life together with her new acquaintance. James, for his part, was puzzling over the best way to propose to his neighbor to legitimize the relationship. "Mom, hi." "There's a conversation to be had," Jennifer began glumly. Having returned the night before from vacation, they flew in and went straight to bed. Mary had gotten up early in the morning and had already made brownies to delight the children with her home cooking. She was eager to share the news of her new affair with her daughter, but she was afraid of what her reaction would be. However, things didn't go at all the way she had envisioned. "Is something wrong?" Pouring flavored tea into mugs, Mary asked. "It's happened. I don't even know how to say it." Jennifer got covered in spots. "That's the whole thing. Anyway, we've got cameras all over the house except for the bedrooms, Mom. They're recording all the time, just in case." All the time. The woman began to feel feverish. The daughter kept nodding. And on top of that, once an hour, they send a recording to the security desk. There was an awkward pause. "Come on, you're a Reddit star now." David chuckled, scratching his belly. "Who knew you'd bring your lover straight to our house?" "And you're still pretty, by the way," said the family friend. Mary nobly remained silent. Getting caught on video was something she'd never dreamed of. She silently set the mug of hot coffee on the table and walked out of the kitchen. For almost a week, she sat at home in her small apartment on the 10th floor and looked longingly out the window. To live to see gray hair and be so spoiled. She hoped that at the end of her life she would be able to try once again to build a family happiness. To finally stop living the interests of her children and other people's gardens. Only right now, the last thing she wanted to see was James. "Mom, open up," came her daughter's voice over the intercom. "They've lost me," Mary muttered sullenly. No wonder no one's picking the vegetable garden. The doors to the apartment swung open, and first a huge bouquet of white roses appeared in the hallway, and then, a little embarrassed, James himself entered. He was unrecognizable. Instead of the work vest his roommate always wore to the construction site, he was wearing a new shirt and a nice striped tie. "What's the matter?" The landlady didn't understand. "Brought it," Jennifer hummed, closing the door behind her. "Our Uncle James has been suffering a lot," she said. "Take him to the lady of your heart." "We can't reach you. You're not picking up the phone. So we brought him here." "Mary, marry me," James whispered, and blushing deeply, looked away in embarrassment. "Marry me." Mary even sat down on the shoe rack in surprise. "We're to marry. We're old now." "What will the kids say?" Jennifer only shrugged her shoulders. "What will the kids say? Mom wants to be happy too. Marry for your own pleasure." Mary clutched the bouquet of flowers in her hands, looked carefully at the servile groom, and nodded with a smile. "Everything that is not done is for the best."